Okay. All right, good afternoon. And before we get started, I'll just make a quick reminder. If you have not picked up your challenge coin, it's got one over there on my left. Every team captain gets a challenge coin. Also, Raycom is going to be doing a raffle at the end of the meeting. In order to get in on the raffle, you fill out your little form that's on your table and take it over to Raycom, and at the end of the meeting we'll have a couple of gift cards up for raffle. But in the meantime, welcome to the January meeting for the 2020 Baker to Vegas race. I hope you all had a happy holidays and are ready to get started with your real planning for the upcoming race. So before we get down to the nitty-gritty, let me introduce a couple people in this building. Behind me, the RV support group. You'll probably see them out on the race course. They've come up and volunteered their time today to hand out t-shirts as they do at every meeting. Great bunch of people. Thank them next time you see them. And I'm sure you'll get to see them again out on the race course. To my left, our title sponsor for the Baker to Vegas race is the Los Angeles Police. Okay, next up, one of our other sponsors doing radio rentals. You've probably visited him already, from Raycom, Mark Abrams.
Well, thank you. I'm going to make this real brief. How many in the room here have used our radios? Are you all happy with them that you used them? Good. Okay. We have the only radio system that actually talks across the whole race course. Most methods of communications are very limited out there because you're out in the middle of nowhere. And we cover approximately 97-98% of the entire race course with the mobile radios, and then for the handheld portables we get somewhere around 80-85% of the race course is covered well. The next best alternative is cell phones, which only cover maybe 40% of the race course at best. So some people use hams, some people try to use sat phones. They all seem to end up costing more money and being less effective than what we offer. So come by and see us, and so that you can keep your team in communications and avoid all the penalties that Tony wants to assess you for doing the wrong thing, which you can manage to avoid if you use our radios. The last thing I wanted to say is we just added a new page to our website specific to Baker to Vegas, and you can find us on the sponsorship page of the Baker to Vegas. If you click the link, it takes you right to our website, or you can look at the literature that's out there on the table, or come by our table and get a copy of the link so that you can find our site easily. And it's got a lot of good information about the radios in the race. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And next up is Debbie, who runs the Baker Vegas merchandise store. And anytime you need merchandise, Debbie will be there in Las Vegas. You can also do it online, purchasing our merchandise. Smitty's sign in the back, if you signage that you need, the caution runner ahead sign, reflective numbers, everything that you need. You have Smitty over there supplying that. And then Enterprise Rent-A-Car with mats in the back corner for all of your rental car needs. Please visit them before the end of the meeting today, and they have a lot of good information for you. Okay. The 2020 race is, right now we stand at 301 teams. We started out at 312 maybe 3 weeks ago, and it's dropped down steadily. We had about 3 teams drop out this week. So we're right at the 300 mark. I expect around race day we'll be in the 290s. That's my gut feeling. Still up from 284 is what we had last year. So a busy race. The race itself is a week later than normal, so hopefully heat's not going to be an issue. April 4th and 5th. Of those 301 teams, we have a team out from Germany, Hamburg, Germany coming. From Canada, we have a number of teams. From the US, we have New York PD coming out. Dallas making a return. They've been away for a couple of years. And first time in the race from Oklahoma, traveling all the way to come to this meeting, Brandon from Oklahoma, Edmond, Oklahoma. So thanks, Brandon. All the teams are paid up for the most part. Refund policy, I'm not going to go over every one, but between now and February the 5th, if it's unfortunate that you have to drop out, it's a $1,200 refund out of the $2,200. And then there's some other dates that kick in after that. I will attach that to the notes that I'm going to send out to you explaining all of that. That'll come out probably in the next couple of days. Hotel information, the RIA Hotel, the host hotel, 85% booked. Ruben told me today we have a room block of 4,300, 44, 45, and we're 85% booked up. If you have not booked those reservations, you do it online through the Baker to Vegas website. That is the discount, that is the code in there. The suites, everything that you need is through that website. Your team t-shirts. As you can see today, we started handing them out. And basically today was the first opportunity for us to do that. And we've handed out a number of them, which is great. Even though we have a meeting next February, is just a live stream meeting, it's not in person. We will have on that same date, which is February the 5th, you will have another opportunity to come out and pick up your t-shirts. I know all of you here today have probably picked it up. But for those other local teams that are not present at this meeting, we expect you to come by on February the 5th, and we're going to have it between the hours of 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. February the 5th, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Kind of a short window. We'll have the RV people hopefully be out there doing it, and we are only going to do it by RSVP. So don't just expect to show up. We can't lug all those t-shirts down and set it up only if we have 20 teams show up. So if you're going to intend on coming, please RSVP. We'll have the t-shirts up and ready for you between the hours of 11 and 1, February the 5th. It's a Wednesday. That's the same day we do the live stream meeting up here at the Academy. Obviously, if you need additional t-shirts, our lap rack store has those for sale. See Debbie over there on the side. Okay, road construction. So here's the biggie. As you remember last year, there were two places that we had construction. From the Pahrump side heading up the hill towards Mountain Springs Pass, which is stage 16, there was a 7-mile section that had been torn up, and that was the first construction stage that you encountered. Well, all of that has been completed. In fact, they tore up the next 7 miles and completed that as well. So they've actually redone the roadway from Pahrump, which was stage 14, I believe, almost to the top of Mountain Springs Pass, which is the beginning of stage 16. All of that has been done. It's beautiful, it's wide, it's smooth, it's ready to go. The issue becomes stage 16, which is the top of the hill running down towards Las Vegas on the east side of the mountain. That looks worse than it did last year at this point. We were out there 3 weeks ago, and if it was in the same condition that it was then, there's no way we could run on it. So we've come up with a couple of different scenarios, and this is the reason you haven't seen the maps or the stage descriptions on the website. We're in limbo. I'm going to be taking a trip out there in a couple of weeks for another matter, but I'll look at the construction. And then on February the 27th or 28th, which is a few days before the next in-person March meeting, Chuck and I and a few other people will go up and assess and make a decision on that day, 27th or 28th, as to which route we're going to use. So right now we can't tell. So the two options would be, plan A would be the same as we used in 2019. That would be stopping the race at the top of the hill, picking up the driver of the baton, driving it down to the bottom of the hill, and start at stage 17. Pain in the butt, a lot of logistics go into that, something we hope we don't have to do, but that is the plan A right now. Plan B would be a straight shot back to the 2018 route. Same start line back there, unobstructed all the way through. The reason the construction is the way it is when we went up there, they were laying the asphalt down. But because it's at such a high elevation and the temperature difference drops down pretty dramatically, they are unable to lay asphalt at a certain degree. And so the word to us was they could not lay asphalt until March the 1st, depending on the weather. So between now and then, as Ruben says, pray for global warming to warm up, and they'll be able to do some asphalt. But I am hoping in the meantime that they are still working on the roadway. If they are able to separate east and west traffic, that would make our job a lot easier to make a decision. And that's what we're hoping for when we go out there in February 27th. Right now, you go from one side of the road to the construction, back to the new part, back to the old construction. And so it's unrunnable as it is now. The manager of the construction site, very nice guy, has said he would do everything possible to make our race unobstructed when it comes race day. But at some point, we are going to have to make a decision on which way we go, and so that decision will be made February 27th. I will let you know at the March meeting, which is the in-person meeting here, March the 4th, I believe it is, on which way we're going to go. Obviously, if I find out sooner that we can use it, I will let you know that as well. So I'm sorry to say right now, up in the air for the road construction. The other change is stage 20, last stage of the race. The exchange point is exactly the same spot as it was in 2019, which is Desert Inn and Jones. That's not going to change. The first 2 miles of that stage is not going to change either. So you'll continue running eastbound on Desert Inn And when you get to Valley View, normally you would go straight as we did in 2018, or 2019, excuse me. But Valley View, if you look to the right, you'll see the Rio Hotel. Unfortunately, we're going to have to make a left because we've got to add up some mileage in there. You'll wind around through some industrial areas, and you will wind up at the back of the Rio Hotel. And that's where we will enter the Rio Hotel property, separate the follow vehicle and the runner at the gate. And at that point, the runner will run unassisted through the employee parking lot, maybe half a mile, to the ballroom, inside the ballroom to the finish line. So the setup will be a little bit better actually than the West Gate. Huge parking area out there in the back lot for the follow vehicles to park and go on in, and for the runner to run safely within the employee parking lot unobstructed. And the finish line itself inside the ballroom is beautiful, just like the West Gate. So that should not be an issue at all. We've had to shut down a couple of roads because at some point on stage 20, when you cross over Desert Inn, it's a one-way, and we're going to be running in the opposite direction. So we've had to have a hard closure on some of those sections. But the run itself is relatively flat, should be an easy 4.6 miles, like it was in 2019. So, if all goes well and we're able to, even if it doesn't go well, we will end that stage at the top of Mountain Springs at the archery range like we did in 2018. 2019 we had to back down the hill a little bit, but I'm confident that if we have to stop the race, it'll be at the archery range, which will either be where you pick up the runner, put him in the follow vehicle, or plan B, you'll be able to continue running with stage 16 at that spot. However, we will be using that archery range. So make plans to pick up your runner from that archery range location. So the parking inside the archery range will be open. We have permission from the archery range company to use that parking lot in there. It's a tight spot, but I think it'll work out well. So make plans either to pick the runner up, or if plan A would have to transport the runner down to stage 17. Again, if you do have to drive the baton down the road to the next stage, remember that drive time does not count against your time. The way the timing system works, they don't have to actually subtract your drive time. They just pick it up at the next stage. All the stages are timed individually. So tell your follow vehicle drivers, stay within the rules of the road, take your time getting down to that next stage without having to speed down there and think you're going to lose time. For the next portion is the runner registration system. I emailed out everybody your password yesterday. Hopefully you all got it. I think you did. And I tell you, I've got to thank Sam, who's not in the room, our computer guy. Chuck and I used to send out 300 of those individually year after year. Well, I asked Sam to develop a program where he was able to mix all the passwords and the team numbers together and send it out in one mass email. It worked like a charm. It saved us 4 or 5 hours of work. So hopefully you all got it. What I'd like you to do, get onto that runner registration portal. At least put your team name and number in there so I know you've looked at it and you've had trying to get familiar with what's going on in there. You know, we get some teams that wait and wait and wait, and we get a little worried because we don't see any activity in that runner registration box. So please at least do that so I know you've looked at it and you're not just shining it off for some other time. Changes on that run portal can be made all the time. It's not like you have to go on, make changes, send it to us. You can go back in, change runners' names, move people around, all the way up until the end of March. March 30th is probably when we're going to shut that down. So go ahead, start filling in some of your names in some of those spots if you can, and you'll have plenty of time to come back, edit, change, remove, and replace names in that runner registration portal. Do not send us a copy of the run plan. We will print all of that out at the end. We're not interested to see where you're at as you go along with that. No need for you to send us what you've done so far. The due dates coming up, a lot of them are next month in February. First one up is the t-shirt deadline, February the 5th. There's two on February the 5th. One of them is the t-shirts. The reason we need it that early, if you haven't submitted it yet, and I did take a look at it this morning, we're about almost halfway collecting all of the ones you've submitted. After February 5th, there's a timeline for us to get those t-shirts ordered and get them back in time for the March meeting. So by February the 5th, you've got to have that into us if you haven't already submitted the t-shirt order form. Expect phone calls starting February 1st, I can guarantee it, from myself, Chuck, or Michelle to find out what's going on with those t-shirt order forms. We do not want to have to guess your sizes just to get that order form in, so please get on that. Once you've submitted that order, we are not going to make any swaps or changes on the t-shirt sizes. It's just too hard for us to do that because, like I said, we have to get the correct order in, and we don't want to be shortchange a team because you've decided to change your order. The first opportunity you will have to change sizes will be in Las Vegas on Friday evening at 7 p.m. when our team captain check-in closes. That's when we can do the swaps if there are any. And I'm sure there will be teams going to want to do the swaps. We'll have our t-shirt section open, and that's when you can do the swaps. The next due date, also February the 5th, is your category form. We've changed some categories this year. Please get on the website. Chapter 1, you'll be able to see the different categories. We've added 2 new ones. We've also had some updates on eligibility into some of the categories, who can win the cup. There's information about sworn categories, non-sworn categories, mixed and female teams. So please take a look at that. If you have any questions on which category you think you might fit, or have a doubt or a question, email us, please. The next one is a communication form, and that's going to be due February the 14th. The link for this communication form is going to go live January the 15th, so a couple days from now. And it's an important form to have. And I'm going to bring up Jeff Lee, who is the communications coordinator. Tell you, when you fill out the form, it goes directly to Jeff. And he'll explain to you the importance of the form, why we need it, and how it comes into play.
Thanks, Tony. Good morning or afternoon. Actually, January 17th, that form will go live. There will be a link on the main Baker to Vegas website. Doing everything I can to make it as easy as possible for you. If you are renting radios, it can't be any easier this year. You go on there and you say, I'm team number so-and-so. I'm renting radios if it's from MRA or it's from Omni out in Las Vegas, that's all you got to do. Because they're going to give me all the information and you guys don't have to worry about all that technical stuff. It's really important that you get the forms done. It's super important that you actually know what your team number is. Every year somebody doesn't know what team they are. Please use this year's team number. Please put down the name of your team. Please do not put LAPD or LASD. There might be more than one team. Please do not put Uber Fast Runners as your team name. I need to match that up to make sure you're actually using the right team name with your right team number to make sure you got it right. Other than that, it's pretty simple. The only other thing that is absolutely critical on that form You must list 2 emergency contacts, 2 responsible adults who will actually answer their phone on race weekend. Because in addition to all the communication stuff, we collect the information that if there is an injury on your team, or if perhaps something has happened at home and we need to get a hold of you out on the race course, we need 2 responsible adults who will actually have their phone turned on Saturday and Sunday. Please do not list the same person twice. Please do not list your dispatch center back at home. Put 2 people down there. If it has to change later, great, but the forms have to be in by February 14th. After that, we have the ability to assess penalties, which we don't want to do. We just want to collect the information so I could get my job done, and everything will be all set to go on race weekend. The form is super easy to fill it out. You can fill it out on a Windows machine, an iPad, iPod, whatever, your phone. We had several teams last year that just did it on their phone. It's all cloud-based. And if there's any questions, my contact information is on the phone and you can get a hold of me. Any questions right now? Excellent, thanks, John.
Okay, next form after that is your volunteer form. Date for that one, February the 19th. Now, get a lot of questions. We used to term this sworn volunteer, so we get a lot of emails, does it have to be sworn? We would prefer it to be sworn, but the answer is no. Okay? We need a responsible person to show up to that stage, sometimes work the worst hours possible, and you need someone who is going to show up, sign in, stay the full amount of time that's required, sign out at the end. Failure to show is a huge penalty. So make sure that you pick someone that you can trust to do this assignment. Ranges anywhere from Baker, California at 8 o'clock in the morning all the way through to the end of the race. The volunteer assignment is done in order of your check being received by us. And we've kept a list from the day we opened, forget the date, or middle of August, I think. We had people knocking on the door ready to give us a check because they wanted their volunteer in the primo spot. And that'll probably happen. But once you get to about 100 teams, after that, not so much. You know, they're going to have to stick with what they get, unfortunately. We'll try our best to accommodate teams, special teams, but for the most part, it's done by the order in which we receive the check. And the last form is due in March, but it's an important one. It's the estimated time. And this is important to us for a number of reasons. We want to be able to group the teams accordingly to not only compete against each other, but to be within a certain window of opening and closing of the stages and opening and closing of that finish line. So we can't get a team that's so far ahead that we have to stop them and hold them up because the next stage is not ready yet, and we've had to do that quite a bit. On the back end of the course, if it's a slow team, guess who's out there waiting for that slow team to arrive half hour, an hour behind everybody else. So it's really important to get the best estimate you can for your team. And how do you estimate your team time? I'm going to bring up the master. You thought you could get rid of him, but you can't. Let me bring back Chuck Foote, who will kind of give you a little insight, a little formula on the best way to estimate your team's time.
I hate to be talked about as old. Anyway, estimation time, Tony is correct. It's very important. Most of you have done this a while now, so you've pretty much on the ball as far as do you run time trials. That's really necessary for you to do that. Whether you're a fun team or a highly competitive team, you need to run some kind of a time trial here in LA or wherever you're from. Run your time trial. From that, you get to know exactly what runners are capable of. It's about 12 weeks before the race. There are no miracles. No miracle is sold, no miracle is possible. If you're a 10-minute miler, you're not going to be a 5-minute miler in 12 weeks. That's impossible. So when you're faced with those kind of realities and you get back to what people can actually run today, Then you begin to sit down and say, what stage are these folks going to run? Old Blue team captain today asked me, where do I want to run? And I said, I want to run first. Get it over with, get it done, if it's possible. And depending on what that stage is, whether in fact Tony's correct, and we go back to the original start line, 5.4 miles, or we have to use his plan A as he's talking about, and it's 5.3 miles. Either way, that's where I want to run. And from that, estimating what I think I'm going to be able to run or what they think I can do, puts us at stage 2 at a particular time, 3, 5, 10, all the way through the race. But if you have not run this race before, or you don't know how to do that, then you take your estimated time here when you run 20 people, or 25 people, or 26 people, whatever you have, come up with an average minutes per mile. When you come up with your average minutes per mile, you add 30 seconds a mile to that. So if you've come up with 8 minutes, now you have 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Look at last year's running time, look at stage 20. What did 9 minutes a mile reach? What amount of time? When you look at that, you have your estimated time. That's the easiest way to look at this. Anything else is just a wild guess. And teams in the past have come very good. I mean, within a minute of their estimated time. Others are 3 hours off. And if you're 3 hours off, you clearly do not know what you're doing. And I saw a youngster back here who probably guessed better than you could, if that's how bad you are. So it really pays off. You have to do this. Tony's right. Run too fast. Tell us that you're a 22-hour team. You're starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you run 19 hours and not 22 hours, then you're going to get stopped 2 or 3 times and told, wait here, 30 minutes until the rest of the parade catches you. Then you can go. 2 stages later, you wait 30 minutes again. Can't allow people to get too far in advance of the race, and sure don't want anyone at the back end of the race. Wrong. You will not start the race at 5 o'clock unless you're a bona fide fast team. That's easy. But it's 4 o'clock and 3 o'clock that become our dangerous places. If you tell us you're good and we put you at 3 o'clock and you stink, then you're going to be last in the parade. And if really, really necessary, we're going to have to come to you and say, lights out, sorry. There's a corridor here from 160 and Fort Apache to the finish line. That's 15 miles. That corridor is manned by $65,000 worth of Las Vegas Metro cops. 1 hour of overtime amongst all those guys is about 10 grand. Can't go any overtime here. There's a window that's available, and we're going to keep to that window. If you don't get in there in that window in time, then we're going to have to pull you off the race course. Take your time, but be right about your estimated time. There are races run. When's the next sheriff's mug run?
Next Saturday.
This Saturday? Next Saturday. Where's it at? Oh, MCJ, okay. Right in the beautiful part of LA, okay. You can shoo a few people out of your way while you're trying to run a 10K. Run as many of these as possible. You'll really find out whether people are good as you think they are or they're not. But you've got to know what can your runners run in order to be able to put out an estimated time. Good luck.
All right, every year, sadly, we lose someone in the line of duty, someone from your department, whether it's sworn, civilian, and we recognize that, and we want to honor those people, or you want to honor those people at some point in the race, and there's a way to do that, a couple of ways, namely. First of all, on the baton itself that your team carries, we will place the name and serial number of that person that has passed away. Now, we're talking about someone that has passed away since the last race. Okay? So that's one of the ways we do it. The other way we can do it, if you choose, is to place a picture of that individual on the bib itself. Normally, it's just the team number and your team name on that bib. But if, like I said, if you want to honor that person, we need a picture in a JPEG format as clear as possible, along with the name and serial number to be emailed to me. We will assemble everything together, match it up with the right team number when we get the bibs printed out. It's a big production, so I really need that ASAP, if you can. One other way to recognize those individuals that have passed is at the award ceremony itself. And LabRack puts on a memorial show at the beginning of the award ceremony. If you want to get this individual onto that ceremony, onto the memorial show, go to the website and you'll be able to click the memorial show button. It'll walk you through the steps on how to do that, and their picture and name will be placed at the award ceremony. Everything on that website immediately goes to Reuben Crane, who then assembles and puts that format together. We are searching for a couple of volunteers in the area of a singer for the national anthem. If you know anyone that has a good voice, wants to do it, not only are we looking for a singer, but we're also looking for a color guard team to come out. And if you know someone that wants to give the invocation, those three things, we would welcome them to come out. There's no reimbursement for any of this. It's all volunteer. So we're looking for a singer, color guard, or someone to give the invocation. Switching gears to the follow vehicle. So by now you've started assembling your crew for those follow vehicles. I'm sure hopefully you've had more than one crew that you've assembled, ready to go. Drive those long hours. If you're a brand new team, never been in the race before, or if you have not been in the race in a number of years, or if you just have a brand new follow vehicle crew and you want to make sure you're up to snuff with the vehicle itself, you have all the equipment, there will be a follow vehicle inspection on Friday night in Las Vegas at the follow vehicle, at the team check-in. And I'll send out information, the exact location where this is going to be. But this is mandatory if you're a brand new team. So look for this in the email on when and where to be. You will have to bring the follow vehicle, assemble it, make sure all the parts are working on it, and that you have everything in the required list. Speaking of meetings, there's going to be the team captains meeting in Las Vegas, as well as a follow vehicle briefing that we give. So there's two separate meetings. They're both going to be in the same location, in the Miranda Room. It's called the Miranda Room, and that's located next to the ballroom in Las Vegas at the Rio Hotel. Follow vehicle meeting, 5:30 p.m. on that Friday evening. You must have at least one of your follow vehicle crew attend that meeting. 5:30, Friday evening, April the 3rd, in the Miranda Room, Rio Hotel. At 7 p.m. is when we'll have the team captains meeting. Same room, it's called the Miranda Room. So hopefully by the time you've checked in, you've picked up your t-shirts, you've stored your t-shirts, and now you're ready to join at the team captains meeting at 7 p.m. We'll give the last minute briefing, and away you go. For the follow vehicles, like we did last year, you need a caution runner ahead sign on it. Again, Smitty can supply that for you in the back. But you can also look in the rule book, see what you need. You can go to any place to get those if you're from out of town. You need reflective numbers, at least 2 inches high, 5 inches high, 6 inches high. I knew it was that. Any color has to be reflective. The right rear window of the follow vehicle, that's where one of them goes, and the other one is on the passenger side of the follow vehicle. Avoid putting that number on the window just in case you run by the exchange point and the window's down, and then no one's going to be able to see it. The reason we want it on the passenger side is we have people documenting times as you run through the stage, and they want to be able to document the correct team coming through. It's very hard for them to see the follow vehicle as it goes off in the distance in the middle of the night. So that's why we've required this number on the passenger side of the follow vehicle, reflective tape. Inside that follow vehicle, we'd like you to have a stopwatch or the personnel in there just to record, not the race time, but in case of a delay. Now, we're not talking about a delay where you think you're being impeded by another team. The only delay we want you to record is an official delay by the race organization. Either we had to stop the race for some reason, and we've had to do that in the past because we had to land a helicopter in the middle of the road. We had to stop the follow vehicle. So there are times when we'd have to stop you. Chuck spoke about having to stop because you're too fast. That's another example that we want you to time the delay, even though we will have our own copies. So this is a backup. But plan on having a follow vehicle stopwatch inside that car. Now here's the biggie, the type of vehicle that we want out there. Over the years, it's morphed into something that's pretty cumbersome out there. Follow vehicles are going to be a minivan, no larger than a minivan. No high-profile vehicles, no Humvees, no diesels. Minivans, the largest we want you to go. I got an email yesterday from Orange County, I believe, wanted to use an electric vehicle as their follow vehicle. And I started pondering, hey, not a bad idea, clean emissions, all that stuff. But the vehicle itself was too small. So a minivan is the optimal size that we need for those follow vehicles. Something else now I want you to consider for the follow vehicle equipment. If you look on the website, there's a checklist that you'll need to print out and have all of the required equipment at follow vehicle check-in. A number of years ago, we had an incident where a runner went down, had a heart attack, and I'm guessing the only vehicle in that race that had an AED device happened to be that team. Brought out the AED device, applied it to the person down on the ground, basically saved his life. So my point to you is, if you can get your hands on an AED device, buying one's pretty expensive. I think they run about $1,000. Am I wrong? Somewhere around $1,000. I know just about every agency has one now, but I want to caution you, just don't go pull one out of the station and say I'm using it. Make sure you get permission if you're going to do that, to use that AED device. Highly recommended. You never know when you're going to use it. It's like I say, it saved this individual's life. See what you can do about getting one inside the vehicle and trying to get those follow vehicle personnel up to date on how to use it. I'm going to finish off here with just a couple of emails that we get about questions on who can run on their team. Probationary officers. Those personnel who arrive at your station after January the 1st, 2020, can run for your team. They are eligible. Runners without a team. This pertains to larger agencies. A runner may run with their last area of assignment as long as their current assignment doesn't have a team. So you can't just say, I'm transferring out and I still want to run with my old team. You can't do that. If that current assignment has a team, you're stuck with them. You have to run with them. Retired personnel are eligible to run for your team or from where they retired, as long as they retired in good standing and we're just on the job for a couple of years and decided to retire. So it's got to be fully vested, retired personnel in good standing can run for your retired team. Reserves. Reserves can run for a team, but it's going to put you in the invitational category. Now, I know LAP reserves have a team. They're here today. Their whole team is comprised of reserves. Civilian employees, they are eligible to run for your team. Here's the caveat. It has to be full-time, and they must work for your agency. So they are eligible to run. They have to be full-time, must work for your agency. Again, you're going to need at least 2 if you're going to be using non-sworn to be on your team. Pete Demetrio, you know Pete, remember Pete? I'm sure you've heard his voice at the finish line. Pete will be with us again, blasting out announcements at the finish line. If you have a runner on stage 20, you want to give special recognition to a chief, someone's retiring, whatever it is, you got to write me a blurb that you want said about this individual. I'll forward it on to Pete to be read out at the finish line. Now remember, it can't be 3 paragraphs because Pete has maybe 10 seconds to call this out. Something short, sweet, quick, that will give recognition to this individual as he crosses the finish line. Running vests. The flashing running vest is what you will need if you are running during the nighttime hours. If you're out on that road between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m., easy times to remember, must have a flashing vest on. If you don't have one, Labrac sells them. I believe we have some in stock still available. And we will have them on the Friday night meeting in Las Vegas. Your Frs Handheld Radio. These are a requirement that you have to have inside your follow vehicle, used between follow vehicle to another follow vehicle. Usually, meant for communication when you're about to pass someone or someone's about to pass you. You can speak to the follow vehicle ahead of you. It's basically line of sight communication. Margie over here will test them today. She'll test them at the next meeting in March. She will test them Friday evening at the meetings in Las Vegas. Mark, you want to come up for that drawing? Lastly, upcoming races. I know they mentioned one. This is the Russ Miller 5K in Chino on Saturday, February the 1st. I will attach a flyer of this and send it out with the notes of this meeting coming up. VIP reception for your chief. And this is not just for a captain of a station, this is for the chiefs only. That'll take place on Sunday, April the 5th at 3 p.m. We have, when you submitted your team entry form, on the bottom you listed your chief. If for some reason you left him out or left her out, you can please submit that to us so they can get an invitation directly from us about attending that meeting. All right, we'll do a quick raffle before we let you go. And remember, the next meeting is a live stream meeting only. There's no in-person meeting in February the 5th. The next time you'll be back here will be March the 4th for the final instructions. And I will go ahead and call out the winner.
Well, Chuck's trying to
As soon as
gather,
Chuck gathers it up.
some last-minute interest.
Again, thank you all for coming out. And I know I try to keep these meetings right under an hour. I think I'm there. And as soon as we get it, the challenge coins, if you haven't picked it up, Scott, wave your hand up against the wall back there if you haven't picked up the challenge coin.